after my son took his last breath. His heartless widow did not even wait a week before throwing my bags onto the street. She strutted off to her fancy corporate office, thinking she held all the cards and I had nothing. But she had no idea she just crossed the very woman who signs her paychecks. I stood on the hot Atlanta pavement, staring at the black trash bags sitting in the driveway. It had been barely 7 days since we buried my only boy, Andre. The earth on his grave was still fresh, and the pain in my chest was a heavy, suffocating weight. But his widow, a white woman named Vanessa, did not have time for grief. She stepped out onto the porch, adjusting the collar of her sharp designer blazer. She looked me right in the eye, kicked one of my bags with the tip of her expensive heel, and told me to go find a shelter. She actually sneered, bragging that she had no time to deal with a freeloader because she was heading to celebrate a massive promotion at her marketing firm. I did not shed a single tear. I just stood there, straight and tall, watching her climb into the sleek Mercedes my son had bought for her. As her car disappeared down the street, a cold, quiet smile spread across my face. My name is Shirley. I am 65 years old. To Vanessa, I was just a broke, retired auditor taking up space. What that arrogant woman did not know was that I am the silent majority shareholder of Apex Enterprises, the exact conglomerate that had just acquired her firm. She thought she was leaving me with nothing, but she was driving straight into my trap. I raised my boy Andre all by myself right here in Atlanta. It was not an easy road to travel, let me tell you. I worked incredibly long hours as a corporate auditor, spending countless nights crunching numbers at my small kitchen table until my eyes burned. Every single extra dollar I made went straight into a college fund. I wanted Andre to have the absolute best education possible, without the heavy chain of student loans holding his future down. My hard work paid off when he went to a top university and walked across that graduation stage completely debt-free. I have always lived by a very simple rule in life. Money talks, but wealth whispers. Even though my paychecks grew significantly over the years, I stayed right in my cozy 3-bedroom house in the suburbs and kept driving my reliable older sedan. People looked at me and saw a regular retired woman living on a fixed income. What nobody knew was that for 30 long years, I was quietly taking my earnings and investing them. I bought commercial real estate, secured major corporate acquisitions, and built a massive financial portfolio. I did not need flashy clothes or expensive luxury cars to prove my worth to anyone. Then came Vanessa. When Andre married her, I truly tried to keep an open mind and welcome her with open arms. But Vanessa brought absolutely nothing to the table except a taste for high-end brands and a mountain of pure entitlement. She looked down her nose at everything I stood for. She would constantly make these little backhanded comments about my outdated clothes or call my lifestyle ghetto, always hiding her insults behind a sweet fake smile. I bit my tongue and prayed for my son's happiness, hoping her cold heart would eventually soften, but life threw me the cruelest curveball imaginable. My strong, healthy Andre suddenly collapsed one Tuesday afternoon from a massive brain aneurysm. Just like that, the absolute light of my life was gone forever. My world shattered into a million pieces. Thinking Vanessa needed support during such a dark time, I packed a small bag and moved into their guest room. I just wanted to help her handle the funeral arrangements and manage her grief. Instead of finding a broken widow to comfort, I found a woman who immediately started treating me like her unpaid maid, tossing dirty laundry in my direction and ordering me to clean up after her while she casually scrolled through her phone. The true nightmare began 3 days later when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Todd Vanessa's lazy and arrogant brother standing on the porch with 2 massive suitcases. He brushed past me without a single word, tracking thick mud onto the hardwood floors my sweet son had polished. Vanessa sauntered down the stairs, wrapped in a silk robe, and coldly announced that Todd was moving into the guest room today. I asked her where I was supposed to sleep. She looked me up and down, her lips curling into a cruel smirk. She told me it was time for me to pack up my little discount store clothes and leave immediately. She actually laughed, saying Andre had left every single penny to her, the rightful wife, and there was absolutely no room in her luxury lifestyle for a broke old woman who still clipped grocery coupons. Todd chimed in, snickering that the local homeless shelter served a decent hot meal at 5 o'clock. They mocked my modest life, completely convinced they held all the power. I bit my tongue, grabbed my heavy purse, and walked out, but not before making a very intentional mistake. Before stepping out the front door, I discreetly left my cell phone tucked behind the fruit bowl on the kitchen counter with the voice recording app running. A few minutes later, I knocked, pretending I had forgotten my keys, snatched the phone, and walked right back out into the sun. Sitting in my car down the street, I pressed play. What I heard through the speaker made my blood run absolutely cold. It was not just simple disrespect. It was a calculated, wicked crime. Over the audio, Todd and Vanessa were howling with laughter like wild hyenas. Vanessa bragged about how incredibly easy it was to manipulate Andre right before he passed, secretly shifting his life insurance beneficiaries to exclude me entirely. Todd loudly praised her for finding a clever way to hide Andre's separate investment accounts from the probate lawyers. But the absolute worst part, the part that made my hands shake with a righteous burning fury, was hearing her boast about draining Andre's emergency medical funds, while my beautiful boy was lying in a hospital bed, taking his final breaths. His grieving wife was transferring his money to buy her new executive wardrobe and pay off Todd's massive credit card debts. She actually called it the seed money for her fabulous new corporate era. They clinked glasses, toasting to their brilliant scam. They truly thought they had pulled off the perfect crime against a helpless, oblivious old black woman. I drove straight back to my beautiful, sprawling suburban home. It is a gorgeous property that is completely paid off, which Vanessa naturally assumed was just some cheap, run-down rental. I walked into my private home office, poured myself a cup of strong black tea, and booted up my computer. It was time to thoroughly review my financial portfolio. As the silent majority owner of Apex Enterprises, I regularly monitored our latest corporate acquisitions. I opened the newest file sent over by my wealth manager and scanned the long list of companies we had just bought out. My finger stopped dead halfway down the glowing screen. I stared at the bold black letters. Pinnacle Marketing Group. It was the exact marketing firm where Vanessa worked, the very same company where she had just been named regional director, and where she had proudly pulled strings to get Todd a highly lucrative consulting gig. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Vanessa had thrown me out onto the street, mocking my bank account, completely unaware that she had just handed her entire professional fate over to me. She was using my dead son's money to build an empire on land that I already owned. I closed the laptop, a deep and calm satisfaction washing over my soul. The ultimate weapon had just been placed right into my lap, and I was absolutely ready to use it against them. Over the next few days, my phone buzzed constantly. It was Vanessa. She was sending me mocking text messages, demanding the title to Andre's old car. She said her brother Todd needed it to commute to his new consulting job. She even had the nerve to type that since I was probably living in a cardboard box by now, I had no use for a vehicle. I read every single word she sent, and I did not reply once. Silence is a weapon when you know exactly how to use it. Let her think I was broken. Let her think I was hiding in shame. Instead, I picked up the phone and made a very different kind of call. I dialed the direct private line of Mr. Sterling. He has been my corporate attorney and high-powered wealth manager for over 15 years. When he answered, I did not shed a tear or let my voice shake. I told him everything that had transpired since my son passed away. I told him how my daughter-in-law treated me and what she had stolen from my boy. Then I told him about her position at Pinnacle Marketing Group. Mr. Sterling asked if I wanted him to simply terminate her employment contract. I took a deep breath and told him absolutely not. Firing her was a slap on the wrist. I wanted her legally and completely destroyed. As the supreme owner of the parent conglomerate, I possessed absolute authority over Pinnacle. I instructed Mr. Sterling to bypass local management and immediately initiate a quiet forensic audit of Vanessa's specific department. I wanted every single receipt expense report and vendor contract ripped apart and examined by my top financial hounds. It did not take long for them to strike gold. 2 weeks later, Mr. Sterling sat across from me in my private home office and laid a massive stack of financial documents right on my desk. The evidence of their arrogance was absolutely staggering. Vanessa had not just stolen from my dead son. She and Todd were actively bleeding my company dry. She had used her new position as regional director to approve completely fake vendor invoices. Todd had set up ghost companies that provided absolutely zero services to Pinnacle. Vanessa would authorize the payments, and the corporate funds were wired straight into offshore accounts controlled by her brother. They were embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars just to sustain their fake luxury lifestyle and pay off the massive secret debts Todd had racked up over the years. They were literally buying designer bags and paying for expensive dinners with money they were stealing right out of my pocket. Mr. Sterling looked at me and stated that this was grand larceny and wire fraud. He asked if I wanted to involve the federal authorities immediately. I smiled a cold and bitter smile. I told him we would definitely involve the authorities, but I was going to wrap this evidence up and hand-deliver it to her myself. I needed her to look me in the eye when her world ended. The trap was officially set. I made one final call to the Chief Executive Officer of Pinnacle Marketing Group. I gave him strict instructions to schedule a mandatory meeting for all top executives and regional directors for the following Tuesday morning. The official agenda read, "Meet the new ownership and restructuring." Word traveled fast. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Vanessa was absolutely thrilled. She was practically vibrating with excitement. She started texting Andre's old friends, bragging that she was about to be personally promoted by the new billionaire owner of the conglomerate. She thought this meeting was going to be the crowning achievement of her shallow corporate career. Tuesday morning arrived, and I woke up feeling more alive than I had in months. I walked into my closet and completely bypassed the soft cardigans and simple dresses I usually wore to blend in. Today required armor. I selected a sharp, tailored black Chanel suit that fit me perfectly. I slipped on a pair of classic pearl earrings and elegant heels. When I looked in the mirror, I did not see a grieving, broken victim. I saw a woman of immense power, ready to reclaim her territory. I walked out my front door and stepped into the back of the sleek, black chauffeured Maybach Mr. Sterling had sent for me. As the driver pulled away from the curb and headed toward the downtown corporate district, I felt a profound sense of peace. Justice was finally coming. I stepped out of the elevator and walked down the hallway toward the main executive boardroom. Through the massive glass walls, I could see the entire leadership team gathered around a long mahogany table. Right in the center of the action was Vanessa. She was holding court like an absolute queen, sipping sparkling water and laughing brightly, acting as if she owned the entire city. Sitting just a few feet away in a leather chair was her brother Todd, looking incredibly smug and completely out of place in his cheap suit, pretending to be some highly paid consultant. I watched them for just a moment, taking a deep breath to steady my heart. The chief executive officer stood up at the head of the table and cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. He announced that it was his distinct honor to finally introduce the silent majority shareholder of Apex Enterprises, the true owner of Pinnacle Marketing Group. The heavy double doors swung open. I walked into that room with my head held high, my heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. The arrogant smile on Vanessa's face froze instantly. Her sparkling water slipped right out of her hand and spilled all over her expensive blazer. Todd dropped his pen, his jaw practically hitting the floor. I watched the color completely drain from their pale faces as the realization hit them like a freight train. The poor, broke, senile old woman they had thrown out on the street like garbage was actually their ultimate boss. I did not say a single word at first. I just walked straight to the head of the table, and the chief executive officer respectfully stepped aside to offer me his chair. I sat down, smoothed out my jacket, and looked directly into Vanessa's terrified eyes. The entire room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Without raising my voice, even a fraction, I reached into my leather tote bag and pulled out a thick, heavy folder. I slid it right down the center of the smooth mahogany table until it stopped directly in front of my daughter-in-law. I calmly informed the board of directors that we had a severe infestation of corporate fraud. I looked at Vanessa and detailed exactly how she had been authorizing fake vendor invoices to siphon hundreds of thousands of dollars into offshore accounts controlled by her brother Todd. I read out the exact dates, the exact amounts, and the exact designer stores where they had spent my stolen money. The other executives gasped in absolute horror, shifting away from Vanessa as if she were carrying a plague. Todd tried to stand up and stammer a pathetic excuse, but I raised my hand and silenced him immediately. I looked at Vanessa and told her that her short, fraudulent career at my company was officially over. I fired them both on the spot, stripping away every ounce of false power she thought she had right in front of the people she wanted to impress. Vanessa completely broke down. She slammed her hands on the table, sobbing hysterically and begging me for mercy. She cried that she would lose everything, that she would lose the beautiful house my son Andre had bought for her. I leaned forward and smiled a very calm, very cold smile. I told her she was absolutely right about losing the house. I explained that my holding company had recently purchased a large portfolio of distressed debt, which included the second mortgage she and Todd had secretly taken out on that very property. Since they had used fraudulent funds to secure it, the bank was foreclosing, and I owned the paper. I then informed them that my corporate attorneys had already contacted the authorities regarding the embezzlement. Right on cue, 2 uniformed police officers stepped into the boardroom alongside building security. Todd started crying like a child as the officers placed him in handcuffs. Vanessa screamed my name, dragging her feet as they escorted her out of my building in absolute disgrace. Once the heavy doors closed behind them, I simply picked up my coffee cup, took a slow, warm sip, and finally felt complete peace. A mother's love is boundless, but a mother's wrath when her blood and sweat are disrespected is biblical. Never mistake a woman's quiet humility for weakness. We stay silent not because we have nothing to say, but because we are letting you dig your own grave. I learned that lesson the absolute hardest way possible, but I walked away with my dignity and my empire completely intact. Life always has a very funny way of balancing the scales when you have the patience to let the pure truth reveal itself. You see, arrogance and greed will always blind the foolish, making them believe they have won right before the solid ground crumbles beneath their very feet. I am standing taller than ever today, knowing I protected my peace and my son's legacy. If you have ever had to teach an ungrateful person a lesson, they will never forget. I want to hear from you. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please tell me in the comments exactly what city you are watching from and what time it is right now. There are plenty more stories where this came from. Stay blessed, stay sharp, and until next time.